What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Live Beyond Average podcast. It is the last day of August. September is gonna be here.
Finally got some cool temps.
I know, this morning was awesome, dude. We shot our bows this morning. Sort of. You shot your bow. I shot like 2 shots of mine for my release broke. That was unexpected.
Yeah.
Well, that broke today and not a week ago when I was hunting elk and not in 2 days when I'm going to be hunting deer.
Yes.
So,
definite pucker factor when
blessings
you're out there.
Dude, and it's funny because I always pack an extra release. It's actually your release. You bought the same one as I had and didn't like it. I still owe you money for that. And I made it public so now people can hold me accountable.
Yes.
But it is a smart thing to take whether you lose it. And in my case, the mechanism on the little back tension thing just started failing and it wouldn't hold the hook that hooks around the D-loop. And it was doing it when I started. I'm like, why isn't this hooking?
Yeah.
And,
it would lock, but it would not hold as soon as you would put any tension on.
Yeah, and I finally got it to lock and I shot one arrow. Like, I was a little worried. And then sure enough, the second one, I'm like 30% drawback and I punch myself in the face.
It's pretty comical.
Oh, dude.
Lost an arrow.
Lost an arrow in the weeds.
Tall grass, got it.
What do you do? But, dude, I'm pumped because we're at that time of year, man, where we're out in the field, we are hunting, a lot of podcast sustenance to talk about in the next few months, which is always fun. Not just talking about what to do after this season or what to do. We are talking about our hunts, which is a super fun part of the year.
Yes.
We have some fun ones coming up, but I just got back from kind of a dual hunt in Nevada too this week. Had an awesome little over a week in Nevada on a couple hunts that I wasn't expecting to draw. It was a cool experience, man.
Yeah, no, that looked cool, sounded really cool. We talked a little bit. We were talking upstairs, and once again, we're sitting there shooting the breeze for like an hour, and then like, we should have been recording this. He pretty much did the whole synopsis rundown of his hunt.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I guess we maybe should have recorded that.
I know. So we're like, okay, should we come down here and pop it on for a little bit and do a short run?
Yeah, so I'll try and ask some of the same questions I was asking up there.
Yeah.
So you did your elk hunt first.
Yes. Yep.
That was archery.
Yeah.
Elk, and then you had a rifle antelope in Nevada.
Yeah.
The first off, with as dry as it is out there, there's a lot of forest fires going on. There's a lot of fires everywhere. Mm-hmm. And even here in South Dakota, we're getting some of that haze in the evenings from those fires, mostly Colorado-driven fire, wind, jet stream fire stuff. But you had some that were pretty close to you, actually.
Yeah, it was crazy, and you could see it as I was driving west, and I was going over the Great Salt Lake desert portion, which is west of Salt Lake, the actual lake. It was cool, dude. It's a pretty neat area. I've been to Salt Lake before, but I've never actually been west of there where it's all deserty. It's crazy.
Did you check the land speed record of the Ram?
Right. I very well could have, because it is just a straight shot of nothingness.
No racing.
And I actually was inclined way more to pull off road and pull some cookies in the salt dirt right there, and you can see it like everybody does, and there's just like tire tracks. But what held me from doing that is, one, just trying to be a responsible adult, but two, every once in a while you would see where like somebody drove into that and they hit like a soft spot and there was ruts that were like 18 inches deep, and I'm like, that would be my luck and I'd get stuck.
Yeah,
so
tow truck bill.
Oh, tow truck bill, I'm all by myself. I'm like, just be responsible. So I didn't do that. But man, even driving west, like you could see the smoke was already getting thick. And I drove through Wells. I went over to Elko to get some things, and there was a couple fires that were close right there. I was hunting north of there, and both of those areas were just, you couldn't see a half of a mile to a mile. You know, it was just, I couldn't see any Nevada landscape basically. Really? As I drove north into where I was going to go hunting, it was just as bad. There was actually 2 fires that had started that day in the unit that I was hunting, and actually very in the areas I was hunting. One I think they actually got under control and pretty much put out that same day, but the other one burned for several days. Mm-hmm. So the smoke was nasty. I got up in there the first day, and yeah, I couldn't even glass across a canyon. And it was like that for the first couple days. So that sucked.
No, that's a definite mental struggle right there.
Yeah.
You know, you're so excited to get out there. You drew this tag, and then you get out there and you can't see anything. I mean, you ran into that last year on your archery mule deer hunt with fog.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, it was a punch in the gut a little bit because I'm in a unit that has some really big. It's nasty country, but it's glassable. It's not just all thick timber. It's stuff that you can actually glass elk. So I was really pumped to be able to do that, and I couldn't really do much of it. I could kind of glass into one canyon if I was already in there. I could glass the bottoms a little bit if I was already kind of low myself. So I couldn't be up real high.
Mornings, evenings, what was better for glassing?
It depended on the wind. The first couple days were like, it was just bad the whole time. And then I had a evening where the wind switched and it blew like probably like 70-80% of the smoke out of the area.
Nice.
And so I was really pumped. That night was pretty clear. And I woke up the next morning. This must have been like day 4 or 5. And I woke up, got out of my tent. It was dark, and I could just smell. And beforehand, it never smelled. It was just smoky, and it smelled like campfire, and it was strong, and it felt close. And so I got on my sat phone, and I messaged Matt because we were talking before that about fire reports on a website that me and him use. And I texted him like, dude, I need a fire report like ASAP, because I didn't know if it felt like it smelled like it was close. It was super thick compared to what it even was before it cleared off.
Right.
So I was a little stressed. I'm like, do I need to get the heck out of here?
Yeah, you don't want to get trapped in there either.
No.
I mean, that's a bad...
Matt failed and never messaged me back. Thanks, Matt. Until like that afternoon. Could have been dead by then. So I hunted. That was actually one of the mornings that I never saw anything. Ironically, I saw an elk. Almost every single day I at least saw one. I kind of hunted. I hunted the same canyon for most of my hunt. There was a group of bulls that were in that canyon pretty much the whole time. Mm-hmm. So I didn't venture into a bunch of different canyons, look around. I had elk there and a really good bull in there that I was trying to get. So I kind of stayed in the same area.
No, why?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it was kind of funny because I got there like 5-6 days after the opener, 4 or 5 days after the opener. And I ran into some guys, after the first couple days of my hunt that were hunting elk that were leaving. I'd run into them, we'd chat, and they'd be like, oh, we're just heading out, we've been hunting all week, like we're burnt out, like all the elk are pushing so far in, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, cool, like, have you seen anything? I'm like, no, just a spike or two.
So they were cool. I mean, other hunters were cool up there, giving information back and forth.
They were, dude, everybody I ran into was awesome.
That's good.
But they were all, they all thought that the elk had all pushed in, and I'm like, I didn't tell them. I mean, I'm hunting these elk, so I wasn't going to tell them that I have elk a mile from where we're standing right now. Because it's like, there was my little canyon, and everybody was hiking way past it to get further in, and they were walking past this group of elk that were right here. And one of them was a toad bull, so I got in on him. Like I told you, it was being solo. I really struggle looking back now and like remembering which days were which. Like, it's weird when I have Matthew with me filming or with a buddy. It's easier to like line up your days.
Yeah.
Because you're talking back and forth, but when you're by yourself, like you're not talking with anybody. And so like my days are a little conjumbled. I'm surprised because usually I'm very detail oriented. But I think it was like day 3, the first day I had seen this big group of bulls. Second day I had gone in there and just like glassed and more or less stayed back and just really watched where they were kind of moving, where they were moving into. If I would have had an opportunity to maybe move in, I totally would have. I had my bow with me. Yeah. But it was like kind of intel. It was that third day I think that I had planned on moving across the big bull portion of the mountain to get to where they kept on kind of filtering up to in the mid-mornings into these big aspen thickets. So my plan was, oh cool, I'll work that, I'll get there in the dark and hang out and just wait and just see what happens. And of course it takes me way longer to work those sides. It's just such huge country, dude. And it was way steeper than I looked like glassing. I knew it was steep, but I finally got clipped off. And so I had to drop that straight down into like the bottom, and it was so like it was like down timbered with new timber up through it and steep downhill. So like you're trying to get over and through this stuff, but when you step over it, your footing's dropping out from underneath you because it's so steep. It was terrible. So I'm making all this ruckus in the last 30 yards to get into this bottom clearing, and I finally get out to the bottom of it, and I was like drenched in sweat.
Yeah.
Like.
Working way harder going downhill than you should.
Dude, I kind of like had a little claustrophobic freak out because it was so thick in there. And I got onto this little clearing right outside this aspen thicket, and I'm like gathering myself, seeing which way I want to get still, work towards where I was trying to go. And I hear this stomp. And I'm like, what the heck? That's what an elk sounds like when they're like cutting through forest. And then I hear it again, and then right after that second stomp, bull barks and bugles at me. And he is like 40, 50 yards max.
So he thought you were a big bull stumbling down.
Or a group of cows.
Yeah.
I was making so much ruckus, and it was so quiet, dude. I was being so loud trying to get out of there. Just trying to get out of this stuff. And when I had dropped down, I had ended up downwind of him. And so I'm downwind of this bull, and he thinks I'm a group of cows or another bull.
Yeah, can't see you.
And he can't see me because I have a big spruce tree between us. And so he's like bark bugling. He's all getting pissy. You can just hear it. He's getting pissy.
Yeah.
And so I obviously put an arrow in and kind of get ready. And I'm just kind of like observing, and I'm kind of like looking through a couple of these little gaps in the spruce tree, and I can see his main beams and some of his, and he's that toad bull that I had seen. Like, he's a big bull.
Yep.
Pretty sure he's the same one that was in the group that I saw originally. And I had actually talked to a couple archery and mule deer hunters in there that had seen the same group, and they're like, there's a really big bull in it. And then, of course, we correspond. It's definitely the same group. So I'm hoping now at this point, I'm like, okay, in past situations of hunting elk, like with Justin, other situations, I'm like, I have him really close already, within shooting distance. I'm already downwind of him. I have the wind, and I have the sight picture of him not being able to see me, all in my advantage.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm just going to wait him out. Like, he's the one impatient. He's the one that's pissy.
Yeah.
He's going to work around that corner of this spruce tree to me, and I'm going to have anywhere from like a 5-yard shot to a 40-yard shot.
Yeah, a layup.
Dude,
essentially, on an elk.
A layup, just like all my other elk kills, like this is the same kind of scenarios. Mm-hmm. So of course I have my little diaphragm call in my side pouch, so like it's there, it's in the back of my mind, and I'm like, do I just give him a couple little mews and pull him over? I'm like, I don't think so. Like, 50% chance I mess up the mew.
Yeah. You might not sound like an elk.
And you know what I mean? Or he just doesn't like it and turns around and it confirms he's an elk and he doesn't care.
Right. Or you educate him.
Yep.
And he pinpoints you and he finds a hole through that tree.
Exactly.
And then figures out what you are. And
so in the moment there, I'm like, I have the advantages. I have his curiosity, and he's worked up. He'll work around to get a look at me. Mm-hmm. And so we stand off like 30 minutes, maybe a little bit more. And finally, and he's kind of bark bugling at me every so often. Like, at the beginning, he was really pissy.
So were the other bulls with that group, or were they?
If they weren't making any noise. Sure. I never saw one. And finally, he had worked off. And of course, then 2020 hindsight, I'm like, I should have mewed at him. Mm-hmm. I still think I made the right choice. I don't think it would have made a difference. I think I had a better chance of him coming 10 or 20 yards over to fill his curiosity. But it was cool, dude. That was the one big opportunity I had to kill a big bull. I had some other opportunities. I could have made some stalks on some dinks that I chose not to. Just wasn't really in what I wanted to do.
You're not going to waste the energy.
Yep. And, dude, but I tell you what, like, my first actual, backcountry area that I've never been to, where I was 100% solo, didn't have a cameraman with me, nothing, nobody to rely on, no help for anything, was a crazy experience.
Yeah, you said it definitely makes you question decisions of if you're going to harvest an animal, how far back you're going to push, because you got to pack that back out if you get something back in there.
There was a couple areas that I had almost gone up into, and I actually sat there and reflected, and I was like, dude, if you do kill, like, why even go? If I kill one back in there, then like, there's no way I get the meat out in time.
No.
Before it spoils. I was hunting in 95 degree afternoons. And so, I had to make some ethical decisions like that too.
Which is good, because you're obviously, we talked about this, you're going to leave, if it's a big one, you're going to leave the head and cape for last.
Yes.
Yes. You want your motivation to keep going back in there. You want to bring that out last.
Yep.
But even if you were to get everything in game bags and get it hung, you bought yourself a day, half day, depending on if you get it in the shade.
And if you get up maybe on like a wind-blown top in the shade, maybe a couple days. Mm-hmm. But like, I start calculating the mileage to get it out, get it back to camp. and how many trips, and then factor in the terrain, and I'm like,
what do you think? Like, how many trips do you think you would have been?
So, in New Mexico where I've killed bulls, or in South Dakota where I've killed bulls, I could probably do it in 4 or 5, and that's heavy. That's like miserable heavy pack. You know,
plus pounds.
Yeah, 80 pounds to 100 pounds probably pack. You know, like you start thinking about deboned meat, what the weight of all that is. Like, you know, you're looking at 250, 280 pounds of meat probably.
Sure.
On a deboned a big elk. You know, obviously there's some that get more than that. There's some that are less than that. I'm just going off average.
Sure.
You know, 250 to 280 range if you're doing a good job. Plus a head, if you're shooting a bull that size, like you're taking the cape, you know what I mean? Like, or if you're not, whatever. But so let's say in South Dakota or in where I hunt in New Mexico, I could do it in 2 trips, being miserable. You know, because the terrain's not quite as steep. It's not there with the terrain the way it was. Like when I was just hiking around with my empty pack or my my pack, my bow, like I was sliding all over the place. Like some of it was so like it was tiring.
And you had trekking poles; those would have helped.
Yep, but I don't think I would have packed my pack as heavy. I think I would have, if I would have killed something, I would have went lighter just because of the difficulty. You know, the difficulty meter was so much higher. So it would have took me more trips. I think it would have took me 6 trips, probably 5 or 6.
So how many miles round trip?
One way would have took me, you know, in some of those areas like 6 miles just back to my camp.
Right. So you got 12 miles round trip.
Yeah.
You know, then
times 6.
Exactly. So you're talking like 72 miles.
Yes. That's to camp though.
So
the truck.
And then to the truck.
Yeah. So it was like I had to start making these ethical decisions on like, okay, dude. And that's elk hunting. And so I did hunt this little other area that was closer, way closer to the truck, way closer. And there was bulls in there that I spent a lot of time right there hunting because there was bulls in there. And everybody was walking past them. So I was hunting these bulls that were close again, that everybody thought they had to go further back, which usually I'm that further back guy. I don't even look. I just go. I just got lucky in the fact that I was a little stressed out and tired when I first got there, that I stayed close and glassed close first just to see what I just was curious about the country. I had not much time limit, so I was like, yeah, I'll hang out here for a day or 2.
Yeah.
And I found bulls.
Well, and you said getting up there, the roads and the switchbacks, and
I was
pretty stressful.
I had like 2 days of just like straight anxiety from the drive-in. Just a couple switchbacks on the roads that I kept on thinking in the back of my mind, like, am I going to be able to, make that turn on the way back down? Thankfully, there was a couple other guys that had driven up there previous and after that I had glass watching in, that I was like, people are coming in and out. It gave me some relief, and I was 100% fine. It was just that added stress of like being alone. If something goes wrong, you tear up a tire, whatever. You know what I mean? You rip something off. Like it stressed me out.
Yeah, we talked about that too. Just having somebody else. It's fun hunting alone, but having somebody else to be that gas and brake. Hey, we should not drive through that. Like,
yes,
whether it's mud, sand, rocky stuff, or steep terrain.
Yes.
Or, if you both kind of look at each other and bounce some opinions off each other, and then it just gains your confidence a lot more. And
Or if you are in a nasty switchback and you have a guy that can step out and be like, okay, you have 1.5 foot, you can go forward. Like, you don't have that when you're by yourself.
Like those Jeep guys.
Yes.
Like, come on.
Dude, totally. And a couple of these areas on the mountain roads were super sketchy. I mean, anybody who's driven nasty mountain roads, like, it puckers you up a little bit. It's legit that if you make a stupid mistake or you're not paying attention, that you could die.
It's going to
cost you. You can roll it. You could do it, and there's several hundreds of feet down. Yeah. And a lot of this stuff is just loose rock, big boulder covered stuff. So it's just it added stress, to get up some of these areas where you're leaving then and then hiking miles. But really cool. Definitely grew as a person from that experience, and being completely alone like that was good for me. Just new challenges.
Yeah. You said you didn't run into any predators?
No, nothing like that. Nothing crazy. Just the fire was the biggest. The fires were the biggest obstacle for glassing, and then just some physical barriers of being. That's the only problem with being in good shape.
Yeah.
I felt like I'm in really good shape going in this hunt, so my ego could have been like, you can go back there and hunt. I could have. I have no problem getting around anywhere. I can hike wherever.
Mm-hmm.
But being smart and be like, dude, like, are you gonna be able to back that bull out if you kill him back there? Like, being smart.
So you were talking, anywhere from 4,000 to 10,000 feet in that range. So you're dealing with elevation also, which you were there for a little bit, so you got acclimated to. But your air quality, because of that smoke, is not 100%.
Oh, it definitely was worse.
It
was thick. I didn't think of that.
So yes, you could make that trip pretty easy if you're on a bluebird day in South Dakota with a little bit of a breeze. But if your air quality is only at like 70% and you're breathing that smoke, that's gonna dry your throat out. It's gonna wreak havoc on your
I never thought of that
system too.
And there was a couple days where I'd hike back. I was further in the mornings, then I'd hike back to my camp in the afternoon because it's so hot. There's no reason to be out. And there was a couple water holes that were closer to my camp that I'd sit in the afternoons. And I'd hike back, and I would get so winded, like more than a normal hike back on those smoky days. And I'm like, dude, and then I'd get like a nasty headache. Yep. And I'm like, I would totally, the air quality was so bad, and I'd have a headache in the afternoon, and I'd get way more winded than I normally would.
Sure.
So yeah, that air quality was terrible.
Yeah, mixing elevation and air and exhaustion.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, a little dehydration for sure. Wasn't drinking, you never drink as much water as you need to when you're exerting yourself out there, when you're filtering a lot of your own water too.
Yeah.
So,
so then that kind of concluded that, or I guess you could have stayed out there longer.
I had a little more time. I got to the point where I had fun, like I was over it, and I was like, I had another tag. I had an antelope tag, so I'm like, I want to go spend some time antelope hunting. It's a good antelope unit. So I wanted to give it. Originally, I was going to hunt more days elk hunting and then only give this antelope hunt like a day and a half. Mm-hmm. And I kind of, after I hunted a week for elk, or almost a week, I was like, I want to save a couple extra days for antelope. Like, I've given this hunt a good go. Like, I want to give this antelope hunt a good go too. Mm-hmm. And so
just change of scenery, change of pace.
Yeah, yep. There was more, and one thing that pushed me over the edge too is there was continually more and more guys coming in to elk hunt that were hunting the same area, and I just kind of got over it.
Sure.
That kind of pushed me over the edge a little bit too. So I was like, okay, I'm going to jet out of here. It had already been past the opener of the antelope hunt that opened, and so I was like, sweet. Hopefully some guys got out of there, and I'll go hunt this before the next weekend hits, and hopefully just have the unit, not very many guys. So I packed up all my stuff, spent the day. It takes half the day to get off that mountain, and then I drove a couple hours west, so I had a couple of 180 miles to go to get into a different unit. Got up in there, and thankfully, it's mountain goat hunting. It's antelope. We call them goats around here. Not prairie hunting like in South Dakota where you get to look over a bunch of
crazy.
It was weird.
You're sending me pictures of antelope skyline on a mountain. I'm like, what in the world are they doing?
Dude, so some of these basins that were on were like 400 or 4,000, 4,200 feet. And some of the goats I glassed on this edge one day were at like 68. Like, and the peak that they were working up to was like 7 something. And there's some peaks that reached like 8.6 in that unit. It was crazy. And I only saw 2 antelope on the flats.
Do you think
the entire time I was hunting? 2.
Do you think they got pressured up that high, or they're just hanging out up that high?
So I read a bunch of forums, and I ran into a guy that was archery. He was like retired. He was archery deer hunting that unit. I ran into him one day, and he was really cool. We actually exchanged info, and we BS'd a little bit. And he actually had hunted that unit several times, antelope hunting. And he was like, I told him, I was like, yeah, I'm seeing everything up high. I've never seen anything down low. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, all the big bucks this time of year. He's like, all the antelope hang out up high. He's like, if you think it looks like there's no antelope going to be somewhere, he's like, that's where the antelope are going to be.
Really?
And at first I was like, it kind of lines up with what I'm saying. Well, then I got some service and I like jumped in a couple forums, all the same stuff. Everybody's like, I can't find antelope. And you'd see some guy chime in. He's like, you got to go look high. Like they're up high. Totally.
Huh.
They were all up high. This guy that I ran into, the archery guy, said, he's like, the best time to hunt is the last, the Labor Day weekend, last 3 days of the season. He's like, when they start running a little harder. And some of the bucks I saw up high were definitely chasing does around. Mm-hmm. Got some phone scope footage of one. And he's like, they'll start coming a little lower when they're trying to really push them and keep them herded up. But he's like, for the most part, he's like, it's just their terrain, which is crazy because that unit's like a big California bighorn sheep unit in Nevada. Mm-hmm. And so like, I'm looking for sheep at the same time because like they're up there. And I actually saw tracks and poop around like a couple of there's a lot. It's deserty, so you don't think there's water anywhere, but there's like a lot of guzzlers and stuff that they built up there. Yep. And so like I'd run into some guzzlers out hiking and I would go check it out. There's like sheep tracks all over. So I never saw any sheep, but I was hoping to. But it's just kind of cool because you're hunting antelope in the same terrain as you'd be bighorn sheep hunting.
Right. Which you only see really in the Badlands unit in South Dakota.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not. It's not like
not in elevation.
Yep. So it was cool. Some of the peaks and stuff were legitly like you were sheep hunting somewhere like in the Northwest Territories or Alaska because they were like rock. There was like you look at this and there's like grass on the side, but then there's like these strings of like black and you're like what the heck? Well, you hike up there, it's all shell rock slide. It was crazy.
So there was feed up there.
Oh yeah, there's grass on the tops. I mean, it's similar to like when we were sheep hunting in New Mexico, where there's grass flats on the tops. The flats aren't not like that big. They're just short little flats. But there's plenty of feed up there, and there's just the elevation's way more obviously. So that was really cool. Not a unit. It's kind of like Barbary sheep hunting where you're covering a lot of ground to see very few animals. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like if I saw a couple in a day, that was my day. You know what I mean?
You said wide open, so they can see you coming.
That was the hardest thing, is because they're on these peaks, and you're trying to like figure out. I did make a stock on one. I passed up a lot of smaller ones. Mm-hmm. There was one on the last day where I was like, okay, like I didn't kill an elk. I wouldn't mind having some antelope meat for sure. My tag was for only an antelope with horns longer than its ears. So I had to find a legal goat too. Can't just shoot a doe for meat.
Right.
So I did find. He was the biggest one I saw. He was probably a 72-inch goat, somewhere around there. It was a long ways away, so I can't give a proper score. He had some good mass to him, so I might give him a little more. But not a goat I'd shoot in South Dakota right off the bat. But I'm like, I'm going to make a stock on him. He's in a really cool area. He's up high. Like, it'll be cool. Like, it'll be fun just to experience that.
Right.
And, dude, I got ghosted multiple times. I got up on him. Of course, dude, they have, like, he had a group of, like, 8 does, and they would, like, set up on lookouts. It was like surrounding the entire mound, and of course they're up high. Like you're not getting within. Even I have a long range rifle, and like they dropped down, got water, went up to this other mountain. While I'm still up over here and didn't even know they left. And I don't think they saw me on that one. Mm-hmm. But then I like looked around, and I finally spot them over there. I'm like, what the heck? And so I glass them, and they're working. That's the skyline picture. They worked all the way to the peak of this thing, like. And I'm like, gosh, I really didn't want to hike all the way up there, but I'm like, dude, you're not doing anything today. Like, watch them for a while, see what they do, and then, like, make a move. So I sat up on this mountainside as I thought this was going to be, like, an hour hike to go kill this antelope. So I didn't put on any sunscreen, and I didn't have hardly any water in my pack. So I'm sitting up there.
That's when the good stuff happens.
Yeah.
When you're not prepared.
So I pulled out the old long hair ear shades and, like, pulled my hair, like, over my face, like my cheeks, my ears, so I wouldn't get burned, and just sat there and like with my spotter and glass, and I watched them work this peak. Finally, they worked all the way around and kind of like worked on the opposite side where the wind was blowing, which I kind of thought they might do. Mm-hmm. So they were on the side of a mountain that I could see, and they kind of bumped down. Thought they were going to drop down a little bit. So I dropped off of my mountain, walked the 2-mile basin across to the bottom of that mountain, and worked the bottom. And, dude, they ghosted me again. Never saw them. I hiked back up the mountain all the way to this back road that I brought my truck in. And what was awesome about this place is all the roads were pretty good on this unit, which is cool. It wasn't like crappy mountain roads that I was hunting elk in. They were pretty good, like South Dakota country roads for the most part. Some were rocky. You had to slow down. But so I drove like this 10-mile loop around to the front side where I thought they went just to glass that evening, and I could never even find them then. Like, and it was like a 3-mile glass, so I could have missed them. But
visibility,
visibility was a little bit better that night. I didn't tell you. Yeah, the first night I drove in there, I couldn't see 50. The smoke was so bad, I couldn't see 50 yards driving on the highway. It was actually like dangerous driving down the highway, and it smelled so bad. There was just nasty fires. Yeah. But we got some rain one of those mornings, and the wind switched, and it blew. Over the course of that day, it blew a lot of the stuff out.
Sure.
So I ended up not killing. I thought for sure I'd come home with an antelope. But honestly, like, really nothing that I had as a goal set to shoot that I really saw. And I'm
Yeah.
totally getting to the point where I'm like, I'm fine with not filling a tag just to fill a tag on some of these hunts. Like, some of them, yes, I want to, and I need some meat for the freezer for the year. I'm not to that point yet this year where it was that hunt where I felt like I had to fill the tag, just to post a picture on social media. I felt like it was actually a much better choice for me to hold to my standard and talk about that and relate to some people that way too. Because I've had some great hunts over the last 7 years of run-to-gun.
Yeah,
and I've had some great
awesome
luck.
animals.
Yeah, and I've had some great luck. I've had things go my way through perseverance and hard work. But I really thought, too, like at the end of this, I'm like, I'm really glad sometimes it doesn't go my way. Because that's how it actually goes most of the time for most people.
Yeah, it's humbling.
And I want to, yeah, and I think it's a great relate factor of people knowing, like, I have a stack of envelopes over here with 30 unused tags that I didn't kill stuff, but people don't always see that. People, when you kill a nice elk, people see that, and they see your photos of that. It's hard to post photos of not killing something because there's nothing to really post.
Right.
So I'm very, although I always have the goal, I want to kill something. Like, I'm going hunting to harvest. I mean, and to experience.
Yeah.
There's so much more, but it was very good to understand, too, is like, I don't have to have a harvest photo on my social media for me to have a wonderful time, me to have a great experience, to learn, which I did, to go on a solo adventure with no reliance, to be 100% self-reliant, and grow as a person. I thought it was very good for me.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I mean,
You know,
you're, like you said, when you set that goal out or you set that bar, what your expectation is.
yeah,
You know, there's a lot of times where you'll get some unreal expectation and then you'll be disappointed. You know, so that's something that you got to deal with too, is how do you, whether, it doesn't matter what you're hunting, is if you set that bar to, I'm only shooting a wall mounter animal.
Sure.
And then you don't, it's just an unreal expectation that's never going to be met. And we do that with everything in our lives. You know, everybody does it.
Yes.
Including myself sometimes to a fault.
Yeah, whether it be in a relationship, whether it be how much we want to get paid in a job. You know what I mean? There's all these bars that we set that a lot of times are completely unattainable, or maybe attainable but very small chance, or we're using it as a comparison factor of somebody else or other outside factors in our life. We're comparing those things instead of enjoying and soaking in exactly what we have at our fingertips.
Yeah, and that takes away from the whole hunt, the whole whatever it is, the whole opportunity and experience of that, because you're so driven on this X goal that you're missing out on everything down here that could be fun or could be exciting or could have some good memories and learning experience because you're so focused on this. And it's almost like that tunnel vision. You don't realize anything else is going on out there. So like you said, it's humbling. It's good to learn and grow like that. And you had that bar, but you weren't going to let yourself get frustrated about it.
Yeah, it didn't make me annoyed at all that I wasn't seeing as many goats as I thought I would, because I'm conditioned to see a lot of goats where I antelope hunt. It made me work harder to find them. It made me go back to, being on several of these sheep hunts with you and with Justin, where learning how to glass at further distance and really pick out when you're looking for a tiny little antelope or tiny little sheep at 3 miles and stuff they blend in, it's very difficult. And so those hunts really prepped me for this hunt. So I got to reflect on like, oh dude, like I definitely wouldn't have found those if it wasn't for these couple sheep hunts that I was on and learned how to really glass better and slow down. And so I got to reflect on that. I did on the elk hunt, I really reflected a lot on my entire summer of my shooting, the big step up in workouts and training that I had this summer that I stuck to.
Yeah, your hill runs.
Yes, my heavy packing, which I never trained that way. I'm not a big believer in it. I'm a big believer in strength training, conditioning, and mixing up the two. I never throw a heavy pack on and go hike. I don't have the time. But I did one of those every week.
Yeah.
And a few weeks I did 2 where I was heavy loading. I'm like not 40. I had 85, 90 pounds on some of my 60 to 90 minute days where I had time. And I do it in the middle of the day, in the middle of the heat. And yes, the elk hunt was my motivation, but then I started reflecting. I was like, dude, it really wasn't that. It was like I was really searching for like outside variables and new things to just see if I was tough, to see if mentally, like, dude, can you go suffer out in the 90-degree humid South Dakota heat with 90 pounds on your back and just walk? Like, it sucked. It wasn't fun. There's nothing fun about it. Oh, let's go. Like, a lot of my training is fun. I believe in having fun with training. That wasn't fun. It sucked. It was miserable. When I did my last one before the hunt, I literally came back, ripped my pack off. I'm like, I am so glad I'm done with that. But it was like when I reflected on the entire summer of what I was doing, like, I really needed it. Like, it was really just like these new step-ups in life or little challenges that were like, it was just needed to, like, to spark more momentum. And we talk about that in our podcast a lot.
New fire.
Yes.
To spark a new fire and a new direction, and just to get that burning somewhere else so that it can reignite what's going on over here that's your regular.
Yes. And we talked about this last hunting season, how you and I, you know, we love hunting, but we both had this season last year where we were like, we had areas and times where we weren't as excited, and we had times where we were as excited. And so we had podcasts where we talked about how to, like, manage those things. And so for us, it's always learning, and this is one of those things where I'm like, it really reignited our fire. We have archery deer in South Dakota starting this week. Tomorrow it opens. And last year, this time, we were both sitting around like, yeah, we were excited, but we weren't like our normal, like, really passionate, fire excited. And like today, we were sitting upstairs and we're talking, and we're like really excited this year, like really pumped up. That normal passion and excitement is both back a little bit more for both of us. And like these type of experiences in life are sometimes where you get to reflect back or what do it.
Right.
You know? And so it's just cool how, and that's with everything in life.
Oh, absolutely.
Like how you're going to have those seasons of
Yep.
in your job or whatever it is.
Yes.
And that too, just like slowing down and like finding these other challenges. Like, for an example, the pack hike, something I don't do, the pack training to challenge yourself and to ignite a fire. You know what I mean? And so it's just interesting.
Yeah, definitely. No, I don't do heavy pack training. I just don't. My lower back and knees, I don't want to injure something before I go out. I would rather do light stuff, more endurance, and I want to have that endurance because that heavy pack is literally going to be for the pack out.
Yes.
I know Justin really said something that stuck with me, and he tries to stick to 25 pounds leaving camp. You know, so that's all your water, everything, so that once you...
And most of the time, he's under 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 25, I was like, geez.
Yeah. But that's like his like long days.
Yeah, and your spotter, so you're bringing extra water, your big spotter, you know, all that kind of stuff. But, so you're talking 25 pounds. So if you even just throw 20 or 30 pounds, just keeping it low, just to get used to that, it's going to be a lot easier. You're not going to wear on your knees. You know, you see a lot of these guys that are on that stair mill with...
Year round.
Oh,
that's the way they train year round. And it's doing something. I'm so pumped. I'm not condemning anything. Neither are you. We're saying this. We're just saying optimally, and me being a sports exercise professional, like, this is what I do. I try to optimize people's longevity.
Yeah, that's the issue. And
I can even tell, I did it for 3 months over the summer where it was once a week, heavy like this, where I do a heavy pack. My knees, dude, I'd have inflammation in my knees for 2 days after every time.
Right.
And granted, I'm going excessively heavy because I knew I was going to be alone and I needed to do it. And I just wanted something new and different, what we just talked about. But I'm definitely not doing it the rest of the fall. Like, I'm not. No. I know it's not good for the longevity of myself.
No.
Like, I go back to different styles of training. It was cool to do, but I definitely am not a fan of doing it for long periods of time or doing it all year round. I think it's a great tool now that I've used a little bit more for something, a very rigorous hunt that I needed to do it for, in addition to my normal training. I would do it again, but I do it very controlled.
Sure.
Like, it's not a, oh yeah, I get in 30 minutes a day. Like, nope, I would train my normal week. I'd have a recovery day, and then the next day I'd go into this nasty 90-minute deal, and then the next day again was straight recovery.
Sure. No, yeah,
Like,
don't
you have
push
to
it.
be smart with training. That's a big part of their training is like, and if you're questioning it, reach out for help. Somebody get experience from somebody that does it. Because remember, with optimal performance, you're going to sacrifice longevity too. Optimal performance comes with a beat down of the body.
Yeah.
It really does. So you're going to lose some longevity. So being smart with it there's key components and variables in there that aren't thought of in most generic populations' minds when they're training. It's just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So keep training though. Don't not do something. The double negatives.
This time of year you can actually get outside and do stuff outside where it's comfortable. In the evenings, it's been awesome because the humidity's gone, the temps drop down. It's really nice to get out in the evenings. I've been shooting in the evenings quite a bit, that low light, and get that little chill in the air. It's kind of nice. What was it, like last week and 2 weeks ago, we had temps that were right around 100 in the central part of the state and upper 90s here. It's just like, come on.
Yeah.
And then now it's turned and, we're creeping on September. So
I know. Still have some random 90 days in there, which are fun, but like the cooler evenings, cooler mornings are just awesome.
Nights are getting longer now. Days are getting shorter, nights are getting longer.
Yep.
Staying cooler.
I am pumped to get out mule deer hunt this week. I hope it's a little better than last year's archery mule deer hunting for... Yours was great. Mine was blah.
Yeah, our 4 days was just stellar. But
yeah, I'm hoping for some better luck on that end of it this year.
Yeah, the weather looks a lot more tolerable.
Yeah, Matthew's going to be there filming for my hunt. We're working on a project with Big Frig on that.
Oh, nice.
Big Frig coolers, so we're really excited to be working on some of that. A few different projects this year during the hunting season, so that's going to be awesome. So I'm really excited. I was texting Matthew back and forth because I haven't hung out with him in like a month, and we live like 15 minutes apart.
Yeah, now you're closer than you've ever been.
We never see each other. So I told him, I'm like, dude, I miss you. Like, I cannot wait to hang out with you in the next several days, and he was excited too. So
that's cool.
It's gonna be good, man. It's
and
gonna be good.
Kind of your good luck charm too.
I figured that out. I usually don't kill stuff unless he's there. So
yeah.
Except the big ram. After I missed him. Like
there was a couple
times.
misses though.
Yeah.
Same thing with my oryx. There was a couple misses.
Yeah, the misses don't happen when he's around. It's just when he's gone. Yeah. I don't get it.
With that Matthew, you cannot be gone.
You cannot be gone on the big hunts anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's just not good luck. So, well, thanks for tuning in to today's podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I hope you guys have a great hunting season. But make sure you're checking in very frequently because we'll be doing a lot of podcasts during the fall about our hunts. So always recapping what's going on week to week, bi-weekly, depending on what hunts are lined up.
Some success stories.
I hope so, dude. I hope so.
And some lessons learned, I'm sure.
Either way, experiences learned and fun. So we'll share them with you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day.